The rain poured in relentless sheets as I navigated my way through the winding streets of our small, quiet town. Working the late shift at Tony's Pizza was never glamorous, but it paid the bills. Tonight, though, was different. The weather had taken a sinister turn, and the stormy atmosphere seemed to seep into every corner of my car. As I glanced down at the order on my dashboard, a chill ran down my spine. It was an address I'd never seen before, a house on the outskirts of town, surrounded by tales of hauntings and strange occurrences. The order itself was peculiar too, a large pizza with anchovies and pineapple, a combination I hadn't encountered before. Oh my God! I spoke to myself. Despite the eerie feeling gnawing at me, I had a job to do. The radio crackled with eerie static as I made my way towards the outskirts. The house, when I finally reached it, loomed like a shadowy sentinel against the stormy night. It was a crumbling mansion, its windows boarded up, and its walls covered in ivy. I couldn't help but wonder who would be ordering pizza to this forsaken place. Taking a deep breath, I grabbed the pizza box and made my way to the front door. The rain battered the dilapidated porch as I hesitated for a moment, then raised my hand to knock. That's when I heard it, the faintest of whispers, like the secrets of the night carried on the wind. The dim glow of flickering candles through the boarded-up windows caught my eye. I couldn't see much inside, but the sense of foreboding grew stronger with every passing moment. My instinct screamed at me to leave, but the thought of the tip kept me rooted in place. Summoning my courage, I knocked on the door. It swung open with an eerie creak, revealing a darkened hallway beyond. I called out, my voice shaky, "Pizza delivery." A chorus of hushed voices responded, almost in unison, "Come in." My heart pounded in my chest as I stepped hesitantly into the dimly lit foyer. The flickering candles revealed a group of figures in masks and hooded robes, their faces hidden in shadows. A large table in the center of the room held a strange array of items, unfamiliar symbols, a chalice, and a dagger gleaming ominously. My breath caught in my throat as I realized I had stumbled into a cult's gathering. Panic surged through me, and I instinctively turned to leave, but the door slammed shut behind me. I was trapped. One of the figures stepped forward, their mask adorned with eerie symbols. "You've been chosen," they said in a chillingly calm voice. I stammered, "Chosen for what?" "I'm just a pizza delivery driver." The cult members circled around me, chanting in a language I couldn't comprehend. As the ritual escalated, I realized the horror of my situation. They intended to make me a part of something truly horrifying. Just when it seemed all hope was lost, a deafening crash came from above. Dust and debris rained down as the ceiling collapsed, revealing another figure, clad in dark robes. This newcomer commanded the cult members to halt, and they obeyed without question. "You've gone too far," the newcomer said, addressing the cult leader. "This one is not for your purposes." In the ensuing chaos, I seized the opportunity to bolt towards the shattered entrance. Rain pelted me as I raced back to my car, leaving the abandoned house and the cult behind. I never learned the identity of the mysterious savior, but one thing was clear: I had narrowly escaped a fate far worse than a haunted house on a stormy night. My pizza delivery job had taken me to the brink of the unknown, and I vowed never to venture into the darkness again, no matter the tip. In the days that followed, I couldn't shake the haunting memories of that night. The stormy weather seemed like a distant echo of the ominous atmosphere that had enveloped the old mansion. I tried to go about my life, delivering pizzas to the familiar and safe corners of our small town, but the experience had left me deeply shaken. Rumors began to circulate about the mysterious cult that operated in the outskirts of town, and the locals spoke in hushed tones about the unexplainable events that had plagued that cursed house for generations. It seemed like a dark cloud had settled over our once quiet community. Despite my determination to put the whole ordeal behind me, I found myself drawn to the mysteries of the town. I began to research the history of the mansion and the strange occurrences associated with it. Late at night, I scoured the internet for any information about the cult and its rituals, hoping to gain some understanding of the nightmare I had narrowly escaped. One evening, as I delved deeper into my research, I received an anonymous email. It contained a cryptic message: "Meet me at midnight, at the crossroads beyond the old mill." There was no signature, but something about the message piqued my curiosity. I felt a strange compulsion to follow its instructions. With midnight approaching, I drove to the deserted crossroads near the old mill. The night was moonless, the air thick with tension. I stepped out of my car and waited, wondering if I was walking into another trap. Footsteps approached from the darkness, and the figure of the robed stranger who had saved me that night emerged. The same dark robes obscured their identity, but there was an air of authority about them. "You've been looking into things you shouldn't," the stranger said. "But you were in the wrong place at the wrong time." I nodded, my heart pounding with a mixture of fear and curiosity. "Who are you, and why did you save me?" The robed figure hesitated for a moment, then pulled back their hood to reveal a face I never expected to see. It was someone I had known all my life, a neighbor named Emily. Her eyes held a mix of sadness and regret. "I was once a member of that cult," Emily confessed. "But I managed to break free. I couldn't stand by and watch them claim another innocent soul." Emily went on to explain the cult's sinister practices and their obsession with gaining power through dark rituals. She had spent years infiltrating the group, learning their secrets, and working to undermine their influence. But the night I stumbled into their gathering, she had feared for my safety and intervened. She urged me to leave town, to forget about the secrets and darkness that lurked in its shadows. I knew she was right, but a sense of responsibility weighed on me. I couldn't simply abandon my friends and neighbors to the horrors of the cult. In the weeks that followed, Emily and I devised a plan to expose the cult's activities to the authorities. We collected evidence, gathered testimonies from former members, and dug deeper into their operations. It was a dangerous game, and we knew that our lives were on the line. Finally, the day came when we had enough to bring the cult to justice. With the help of the authorities, we raided the old mansion on a stormy night much like the one that had led me there in the first place. The cult members were arrested, and their dark rituals were disrupted. As the storm raged outside, I watched from a distance, knowing that I had played a small part in bringing an end to the horrors that had plagued our town for generations. The old mansion, now stripped of its eerie allure, stood as a symbol of the darkness that could be conquered when brave souls dared to confront it. In the end, I had not only escaped the clutches of a malevolent cult but had also found the courage to stand up against the forces of darkness that had threatened our small, quiet town. Though the memories of that fateful night would never truly fade, they served as a reminder that even in the face of the unknown, there could be hope, redemption, and a chance for a brighter future. Story 2. I was a struggling college student, desperate for any job that would help me make ends meet. When I stumbled upon the Help Wanted sign at Luigi's Pizzeria, it felt like fate had dealt me a winning hand. Little did I know that my life was about to take a bizarre and terrifying turn. Luigi's Pizzeria was nestled in an old, run-down building on the outskirts of town. The place had character, or so I told myself, as I stepped into the dimly lit restaurant for my first shift. The wood-paneled walls were adorned with faded photographs and vintage pizzeria memorabilia. The smell of freshly baked pizza wafted through the air, luring in a steady stream of customers. It seemed like a typical pizza joint. My first few days on the job went smoothly. I learned to toss dough, spread sauce, and load up pizzas with toppings. The regular customers were friendly, if a bit quirky, and they all had their own peculiar pizza preferences. But then came the deliveries to the neighborhood known as Hollowbrook. It was a place where the streets seemed to twist and turn endlessly, a maze of eerie, overgrown trees and crumbling houses. Hollowbrook had a reputation for being haunted, and its residents were notorious for their reclusive and secretive ways. My first delivery to Hollowbrook was to a house that looked like it had seen better days. As I approached the door, I heard strange, guttural whispers that sent shivers down my spine. My knocks went unanswered, but I could feel eyes watching me from the shadows. Just as I was about to give up and leave, the door creaked open on its own, revealing a darkened interior. Inside, I caught a glimpse of a pale, translucent figure that vanished as quickly as it had appeared. I dropped the pizza and sprinted back to my car, my heart racing. Back at the pizzeria, I tried to dismiss it as my imagination playing tricks on me. But the strange occurrences continued. Mysterious voices on the phone placed orders for pizzas with cryptic messages. In the kitchen, the utensils moved on their own, and the ovens seemed to have a mind of their own. And every night, when I closed up shop, I could hear faint whispers echoing through the building. Then came the night of the unsettling encounter with Mrs. Grimsby, one of our regulars from Hollowbrook. She had always been a bit odd, but that night, her behavior took a terrifying turn. She stared at me with vacant eyes, her voice a low, unnatural tone as she muttered, "They're watching you. You're the key." I was thoroughly unnerved, convinced that something sinister was afoot. Desperation drove me to dig into the pizzeria's history. It was then that I uncovered the dark truth. Luigi's Pizzeria had been built on the site of an old burial ground, disturbed when the restaurant was constructed. The restless spirits, angered by their disturbed resting place, had attached themselves to the pizzeria. I had unwittingly become a conduit for their presence, and I held the key to setting them free. I enlisted the help of a local paranormal investigator, who guided me through a ritual to appease the spirits. The night was filled with eerie apparitions, but as I followed the steps, the atmosphere grew calmer. The investigator chanted incantations that seemed to calm the restless souls. Finally, the spirits began to fade, their ghostly forms dissipating like smoke in the night. The ritual was a success, and the pizzeria was no longer a gateway to the paranormal. As I walked out of Luigi's Pizzeria that night, I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. The dark history of the place was finally put to rest, and I had broken the curse that had bound me to the supernatural. My pizza delivery days were over, but I had a story to tell that would haunt me for the rest of my life, a story of a seemingly ordinary job that had led me down a path of otherworldly secrets and supernatural encounters. In the aftermath of the paranormal ordeal, life began to regain a sense of normalcy. I bid farewell to Luigi's Pizzeria and took up a less mysterious job at a bookstore in the town center, far removed from haunted houses and restless spirits. I kept in touch with the paranormal investigator, whose name was Dr. Evelyn Thornton. She continued to study the events that had transpired at the pizzeria and urged me to be cautious, as the spirits might seek vengeance if provoked. She believed that the key I held in the ritual had a deeper significance, but she couldn't decipher its full meaning. As time passed, I slowly put the bizarre occurrences behind me. The memory of Hollowbrook and its eccentric residents faded into the recesses of my mind, and I focused on my studies, determined to graduate and leave behind the strange town that had ensnared me. But just when I thought I had escaped the supernatural, an unexpected letter arrived at my doorstep. It bore the emblem of a raven, inked in black, and contained a single sentence: "They watch, and they remember." My heart sank as I recognized the cryptic message. The restless spirits, it seemed, had not been entirely appeased by the ritual. They had left me a chilling reminder that their presence lingered, and they had not forgiven my involvement in their release. Dr. Evelyn Thornton returned to Hollowbrook, concerned about the ominous message. She explained that the spirits might not rest until I had fulfilled their unknown purpose. She believed that the key I held was more than just a tool in the ritual, it was a connection to a deeper mystery that had yet to be unraveled. Together, we embarked on a quest to uncover the truth behind the spirit's message and the enigmatic key. Our journey took us deep into the heart of Hollowbrook, where we encountered increasingly bizarre and otherworldly phenomena. The town's residents, who had once seemed odd but harmless, now revealed their supernatural nature, possessing powers beyond human comprehension. As we delved deeper into the secrets of Hollowbrook, we uncovered a hidden society, a council of spectral beings that governed the town and held sway over its residents. These beings, bound to the cursed burial ground, sought a way to break free from their eternal imprisonment, and they believed that I held the key to their liberation. With each revelation, the stakes grew higher, and the town of Hollowbrook became a battleground between the living and the dead. Dr. Thornton and I were faced with impossible choices and dangerous adversaries as we sought to uncover the truth about the spirits and their mysterious key. In the end, we unraveled a centuries-old conspiracy that had ensnared the town in a web of secrets and supernatural intrigue. The spirits, bound by their past, had sought to manipulate the living to free them from their curse. With the help of the knowledge we had gathered, we confronted the council of spectral beings in a climactic showdown that would determine the fate of Hollowbrook. As the final incantations were spoken and the key's true purpose was revealed, the spirits were granted release, and the town was cleansed of its supernatural terrors. The curse that had plagued Hollowbrook for generations was finally broken, and the town's residents were freed from their otherworldly obligations. With the spirits at rest and the town no longer a center of paranormal activity, Dr. Thornton and I left Hollowbrook behind, knowing that we had played a crucial role in unraveling its mysteries. Our strange journey had come to an end, but the memories of that bizarre and terrifying turn in my life would remain with me forever, a reminder that sometimes, the most extraordinary adventures lie hidden beneath the surface of the ordinary. Story 3. Delivering pizzas had never been my dream job, but it paid the bills while I figured out what I really wanted to do. Most of the time, it was a straightforward gig: take orders, make deliveries, collect tips. But then came the regular customer who would change everything. It started innocently enough. An order came in for a large pepperoni pizza with extra cheese and a side of garlic knots. The customer wanted it delivered to an inconspicuous address on the outskirts of town. I didn't think much of it. People had their preferences, and some just liked their privacy. When I arrived at the address, a quaint cottage nestled among tall pine trees, I couldn't help but feel that something was off. The air was heavy with an eerie silence, and an unsettling feeling settled in my gut. A voice in my head told me to leave, but I dismissed it as paranoia. I knocked on the door, and it swung open to reveal a man in his 40s with a friendly smile. His eyes, however, were a shade too intense, his demeanor a bit too calm. He handed me cash for the pizza, but when I checked, the tip was an exorbitant amount, far more than anyone would ever give for a pizza delivery. I stuttered a thank you, feeling uneasy, and rushed back to my car. Over the weeks that followed, this customer, who went by the name Mr. Smith, became a regular. His orders were always the same: large pepperoni pizza with extra cheese and garlic knots, but the delivery instructions grew stranger. He insisted that I leave the pizza on the porch, knock 3 times, and then walk away without looking back. The tips kept getting larger with each delivery, and I couldn't help but wonder about Mr. Smith's motives. Why was he so fixated on this peculiar routine? My curiosity eventually got the better of me, and I decided to dig deeper. One evening, after making another delivery to Mr. Smith's cottage, I parked my car around the corner and watched from a distance. I saw him open the door, retrieve the pizza, and then proceed to a clearing in the woods behind his house. He laid out the pizza on a makeshift altar, surrounded by candles, and began chanting in a language I couldn't understand. My heart pounded as I witnessed this bizarre ritual. Something was definitely wrong, and I needed to find out what it was. I started researching the address and Mr. Smith, hoping to uncover any clues. What I discovered sent chills down my spine. There had been a series of unsolved murders in the area, each one connected to the strange address and the same unusual toppings: pepperoni and extra cheese. It was as if the pizzas themselves were a gruesome signature. Desperation and fear gripped me as I realized that I might be delivering pizzas to a serial killer. I couldn't just sit by and do nothing. I had to find out who Mr. Smith really was and stop these killings. My investigation led me to a forgotten chapter in the town's history, a cult that had once occupied the cottage. They believed in sacrificing their victims as offerings to a malevolent deity, and their rituals involved pizza as a symbol of their devotion. As I delved deeper into the cult's history, I uncovered Mr. Smith's true identity. He was the last surviving member of the cult, and he had continued their sinister tradition. I knew I had to act fast. One fateful night, I made my final delivery to Mr. Smith. As I approached his cottage, my heart raced with a mix of fear and determination. I knocked on the door and handed him the pizza, just as I always did. But this time, I was ready. I asked him about the cult, the murders, and his twisted rituals. He hesitated, his eyes darting around nervously. Then, with a chilling smile, he confessed to it all. He believed that the sacrifices were necessary to maintain his immortality. But I had a plan. While he was distracted, I activated my phone's voice recorder and captured his confession. I had evidence that could finally bring him to justice. As he reached for the envelope containing my tip, I realized that this would be the moment of truth. I had to act quickly. With a swift motion, I knocked the envelope from his hand and shouted for help. The police arrived just in time to apprehend Mr. Smith. As they led him away in handcuffs, he glared at me with a mix of anger and defeat. I had put an end to his reign of terror, but the nightmares would stay with me forever.